I'm also the interim director of Gone Rural, which is the sister company to my sister Sasha next door. And we work with 13 communities. It's about 782 women, and they are highly skilled artisans. And our job is economic empowerment, because we believe the only way to truly elevate a woman's status within society is through economics. In our country, we only received equality in 2006. So when I got to this country in 2003, I had to get my husband's permission to join the library. So you can imagine that even though the law is on our side now from 2006, attitudes take longer to change. So economically empowering women is the way to elevate them.
Definitely. Great. And welcome again to you both. So before we delve into the impact of COVID-19 in Eswatini and on your communities, perhaps each of you could share a bit about the communities you serve and the work with Crossroads that you've been involved in since before the pandemic. And Sasha, I'll turn to you first, please.
Thanks, Heather. So Bomage Rural Project was established to basically meet the needs of the artisans of the Gone Rural artisans. We also have sustainable livelihoods for the artisans, and also which is water, sanitation, and hygiene. So we basically look we've had intervention in 28 out of those 63 communities. So we still have a bit of a long way to go. The Institute and have our staff being capacitated on so many different levels. And also we do have funding that comes through from Crossroads for various projects that we have running on the ground.
Amazing, great, thank you. Julie, I know it's difficult for us sometimes to remember, what was the world like before COVID-19, but it would be great for our audience if you could share a bit more. What was it like? What were the challenges for the communities for SWIFT and also for Gone Rural, the kind of challenges you were facing and the organization was facing before COVID-19?
We have a population of 1.3 million, and 74% of that population lives on less than $2 a day, which is a challenge in itself. Our other major issue in our country was the new infection of HIV rates. We had the highest new rates of HIV in the whole world. And it was 3% of the population were being tested and found to be positive. We've done, the government and the private sector work together, and we've been able to cut those infection rates down to 1.4%. But it's still a major challenge because we have almost 200,000 orphans in our country. So that poverty, it's a twin devastation of poverty and HIV. And we were just starting to come out of it before this pandemic. Then our young people, we have 70% of our population is under the age of 35, but 58% of them were unemployed. So that's one of the things that SWIFT's been focusing on is youth, to try and capacitate them and give them the skills and the knowledge, and then link them to markets.
Thank you. So let's turn our attention now to this pandemic, to COVID-19. You can share with us, give us a picture, and Sasha, I'll come back to you and start with you. Give us a picture of, what's really been the impact of COVID-19 on the communities with which you work?
Well, I think the most obvious one has been limited movement, which means that a lot of our community members in rural areas of Eswatini unable to go to work as much. So that's compromised their income generation abilities. We've seen that, even through Gone Rural, the orders have gone down almost to nothing. And that means that the artisans aren't doing the handwork that they're so used to doing on a daily basis. One of the other things that we've seen, as mentioned, we do have a bursary fund. We don't only just pay school fees for high school students for the dependents, but we also do follow up, out of school activity support. And it's been really difficult to do that with, the limitations of movement and also with the group settings. And I know that with the students as well, they've struggled to be able to keep up on that gender-based violence. SWAGA, from the database that we receive from SWAGA, is that, they've more than doubled, and there has been, a conscious move to even introduce a toll-free line for women in rural communities to be able to, get assistance because they cannot move out of the communities so freely now to seek help. We've seen cases even with our, women artisans. Some have left their marital homes because of the situation, which we do applaud because we want to promote women that are able to make decisions, that are independent enough to walk out of those kind of situations. So there's been such a big impact on women in particular. It's not to say that before COVID-19 we didn't have issues or challenges. Our programs are focused on these areas that we focus on solely because the need has always been there, whether it's the education or income generation or access to water and sanitation facilities. But primarily because it is, these are areas that women usually take the wheel. We have 782 women, of course, and 52% of those women are the sole income earners in their homesteads. So with the compromised income generation, that means they're having so much difficulties to sustain their home life, and their children. Another threat, just as an organization, as an NGO, is our restricted funding opportunities. We rely on a lot of fundraising initiatives to support our operational expenses. One of those platforms locally has been a festival, MTN Bushfire Festival, which had to be postponed this year. And it contributes more than 30% towards our operational expenses. So we've had to look at other ways to keep our doors open. So those have been the impacts, the negative ones. But of course, there are also positive impacts that we are seeing. We are seeing a great display of resiliency and resourcefulness from our artisans. They are, thinking outside the box, bringing new ideas for projects that they want to do that are based on skills and assets that they already possess. So we're very excited for that, to see them adapting, with the situation currently.
Great, thank you for that. And Sasha, you mentioned SWAGA. They also happen to be a Crossroads partner. Can you let people know what SWAGA is?
So SWAGA is an association in Eswatini that is focused on, women's rights and also dealing with gender-based violence. They help support victims of such occurrences. I don't think it's specifically for women, but anyone who might be experiencing, violence or abuse at home is able to get assistance from SWAGA.
Great, thank you. Julie, say a little bit, if you could, about the economic impact of COVID-19 in Eswatini.
Certainly. We've had 9,000 people laid off from their work in the country, and each of those people supports on average 6 dependents, and that's a massive blow. We also rely heavily on tourism. So some of our greatest hotels are closed. They are just shut. Within our membership, everybody has retail outlets that are primarily targeted at tourists, and those all closed in March. So it looks like those small and medium enterprises in our country will lose 50% of their income in 2020. With the COVID cases, our government moved very, very quickly to close the borders, to close all non-essential businesses, which unfortunately included gone rural, and then restricted travel. Masks were made compulsory. Everybody had to wear masks in the country, which has meant that we have had, fortunately, 600 cases, unfortunately, and bless them, we've had 6 deaths. So it's not as bad as the Northern Hemisphere, but the impact economically has been extremely harsh. Our rural women for gone rural, we were non-essential business, so we couldn't operate, which means the women haven't earned any money. So that's been our hardest blow here, is the economic impact.
I can hear it, yeah, definitely. So, at Crossroads, we're working to support our partners to adapt and retool in the face of these kinds of consequences that you're both referring to. And that retooling and support, of course, applies to Bomaki, Gone Rural, and SWIFT. Tell us a little bit about how your organizations have been adapting during COVID, and how are you reaching those who really have been the hardest hit? And Sasha, perhaps I'll start with you again.
Thanks, Heather. I think one of the things that Julie's touched on, was is the requirement for masks to be compulsory. So we were able to identify an opportunity there very early, and together with one of the groups that we have that is being supported by Crossroads, actually, they started off as a sewing group. Basically, they were making sanitary pads for the communities, for women and girls. And we were able to capitalize on this opportunity to switch to making masks. And it's been really, really fruitful, because the women have had so much income, a steady flow of income from this initiative. We've also been able to do, a bit of fundraising towards our operational expenses that we haven't been able to, cover through the normal platforms like the Bushfire Festival. Through this initiative, we've been able to distribute over 2,000 masks to the women and their dependents in the rural communities. And it's just been such a great display of, like I mentioned before, resiliency and the ability to be able to adapt. And interestingly, through Crossroads, I was able to go last year to attend, to do a course in Canada, in Nova Scotia, through the Coady Institute on building resiliency, and it's so amazing to be able to see that coming into play, unfolding, and us being, about basically on the front line and being able to initiate these projects that are already addressing a need. So it's been a great way of learning. We've also been really focused on taking on a more asset-based approach, because we feel that if the artisans are the ones leading projects that are coming with skills they already have that they can turn into a business, it's much more sustainable. And we've seen that through this kind of projects and other projects that they've been coming up with for us to help support. So those are just means and ways that we are adapting together, because we don't exist, in isolation. We work together with the women. We are partners with the women. We don't just help them, rather we support them. Also with our students, we've seen them really pushing on the home front. We've partnered with government institutions like the National Radio. They have an excellent program running that supports students with basically home education or home learning. And we're able to give them schedules and timetables and, other types of support via WhatsApp groups, which we never did before. And I think one of the most positive things I've seen is that we are now able to actually offer more intimate interaction or support for the students and the artisans, because we are on the phone with them. We cannot travel and address them in a group, which we used to do, but we are calling them and talking to them weekly, one-on-one. So it's been really amazing, and we learned so much about them on a personal level. So that's been some of the upsides and how we've all been adapting.
Yeah, really amazing. Julie, how about you? How have you had to change your work during COVID-19?
We've changed everything.
Fortunately, your office, Julie.
Moving office, everything. I was also fortunate to be chosen and sponsored by Crossroads to attend the Coady Institute in Nova Scotia. And our course was learning organizations and change. And I cannot tell you how much that has impacted us now with all this change that's going on. I feel like I've got the skills and the tools needed for that. And thank you, Crossroads. We train in person. So we've not been able to do any in-person training until June. And that really affected us because we have our work set out in quarters and we get our funding in quarters. So all our funding was about to hit in April, and then the country closed on the 27th of March. So what we've been trying to do is to build a virtual digital training platform, especially to reach the youth, because our youth are very tech savvy. And they've got time at the moment. They're not at school. There's no orders coming in. So we wanted to try and reach them through a digital platform. With Gone Rural, like I said, we were non-essential. But our customers, I want to give a big shout out to all the Gone Rural customers who have gone out of their way to support us. We've got orders coming in June, which is incredible. And we are so grateful. With Crossroads, we were just in the middle of a Global Affairs Canada project that was funded by them, which is a youth empowerment project. We had trained 67 of the 100 youth, and we'd finished the first 2 activities, and we were about to start with the other 37 youth, and then do a market access program, and then COVID-19 hit. So I have 37 eager young people out there, desperate for us to go back out there training. So hopefully we can get our digital platform up and running, and then we can start reaching them again.
They sound ready.
They're ready.
Great, yeah. And to say that in my home, I've Gone Rural products. They're beautiful. So yes, wonderful.
Thank you.
Just a reminder to our audience that we're going to move shortly to questions. So if you do have questions, go to the bottom of your screen and you can put them in the Q&A, and we'll get to as many of them as possible. So Julie, I'll start with you for this one. So in light of what you've both been sharing with us and really inspiring about how both of your organizations and the communities with which you're in partnership have been so resilient and so adaptive. Julie, what are your hopes now going forward for the future?
I'm hoping that everybody realizes just how precious and fragile life is. And I'm hoping that more people decide to use their life to change the world, to truly go out and make a difference, whether that's through volunteering, you get to know people, you get to understand other cultures. And I think it's really important, especially with what's going on in the world right now. We need to go out and meet other people and learn. So I would really love to see people travel again. And hugs. I'm missing hugs. That's it. I'm missing hugs.
It's so great. I know you are not alone on both fronts, travel and hugs. Yeah, that's great. Sasha, how about you? What would you see as the hope for the future? You're muted, Sasha.
I mean, I resonate with what Julie says, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we need one another. We're a global village, a small one, and travel is essential, you know. I think that my hope, especially, you know, in the communities that we, you know, we work in, I really hope that they can value their potential, they can value their input, they can value their ability to do it themselves. And as I've seen, or we've seen right now, I'm hoping that, you know, women, girls, marginalized groups come out of the situation feeling empowered and feeling that they can do anything that they set their minds to, and that they don't lose sight of the bigger picture, you know, and they don't forget how resilient they were through the face of such adversity. I think that's what we need. And I think that we need to also look at more sustainable development as a country, and really realize the value of what we have. You know, we have so much, you know, we're such a wealthy country in our landscapes, in our resources, natural and otherwise. And I'm really happy to see that there's been a lot of initiatives pushing for local tourism by locals. And that, you know, as a landlocked country, we've been tested, you know, to see that we cannot bring so much stuff in, we have to do it ourselves, and that we can do it ourselves. So, and the people in the rural communities, they're so experienced in farming, you know, which is the leading economic contributor to our, you know, economy in general. So they have so much wealth in the land that they own, in the hands that they have to till that land. So I think that we have a good chance of coming out of this better. And I hope that we don't forget. Yeah.
These are great messages of hope for all of us, I would say. We've got some questions in the chat or in the Q&A. So I'll ask this, Julie, to you. You talked about the unemployment rates for youth. Are young women disproportionately impacted, or does it seem like it impacts men and women equally?
No, it definitely impacts young women more than young men. I think that's because women, we only got equality in 2006. So it seems that even though we have the law, culturally the youth are not really, they don't play any role in decision making. It's the adults that make the decisions. And it's still the men that are making the decisions. So that actually negatively affects young women more than young men. It's almost that young men are expected to go out and work, but young women are expected to get married. And we have to overcome that. And the way we overcome it is by getting women's voices heard. We get more women into leadership roles, but we do it in partnership with men. We have to work together because two voices are important. It can't just be one part of society's voice being heard and not the other. If we do it together, we're stronger and we're more united.
Definitely, thank you. Got lots more questions. I'll answer one that came in, which is the correct spelling for Swaga. So I'll just let people know so they can look up Swaga. It's SWAGAA, and it stands for Swaziland Action Group Against Abuse. So, Sasha, I'll turn to you for a question. In addition to the COVID mask market, are there other domestic market opportunities that women and youth can tap into?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it is a bit revealing, but I think that from some of the projects that are coming in, we have very complementary products that the women want to make. Remember, we deal with the artisans, which are seasoned handcrafters, so they have a lot of amazing hand skills. They can do multifunctional things. So there's been, call for soap making, for instance, from one of the groups, which we feel is actually a very viable project. It not only complements what's happening right now, where we're speaking about hand washing and hygiene practices, but it also ties in also to our, sanitation and hygiene program that we already have. It ties in with our sanitary pads project, because the kits that we have have to have soap and a towel with the washable pads. So that's just one of the things the women have come up with to say they want to be able to do, which we feel is quite a great project in itself. I think the mask market is evolving. I've seen so many different products on the market that are being introduced. You have shields now, you have fumigation, like walk-through fumigation, utilities, so people are very innovative. They're thinking about so many different things, but I think more than anything we are seeing a spirit of entrepreneurship. Nobody's looking to be hired. They're looking at what can I do? What skills do I have? What assets do I have? How can I put it into work that might generate income for me? So as a young person, or as a woman, as a man, wherever you are located, geographically, rural, urban, I think it's about, thinking outside the box now and thinking what can you do with the resources you already have.
That's great. Julie, you've got a question about, are there digital training opportunities for gone rural artisans to support online sales?
That is something we have to look into. Where we have a bit of a challenge in our country is the fact that we don't have a PayPal system. It's against the law. So it's very difficult to take online sales here. We've been talking to some agents in South Africa in the past week because they do have that system. And we could ship just from Eswatini, 4 hours down the road, it's in Joburg. And then Johannesburg also has a really amazing courier system, and they could ship out for us. So it's something we're definitely looking into.
Great, thank you. And Sasha, I'll ask you this question. So there is a young Swazi in the diaspora and who's interested in raising funds for the youth back home. So perhaps Sasha or Julie, what's the greatest need at the moment, and what's the best way to get involved? So perhaps Julie, I'll ask you because you're working very directly with youth, and Sasha, if you want to add.
Yeah, the greatest need for our youth at the moment is helping them to become entrepreneurs. Understanding the difference between running a business and truly being an entrepreneur, spotting the gap, how to fill the gap, how to do their research. Because youth are not culturally heard and they don't play any role in decision making, the way to get them heard is to turn them into successful entrepreneurs.
That's great, thank you. And let's go to a question about what's happening to NGO employees. Sasha, I can ask you this. Do NGOs in general have the money to keep them employed? Are they being laid off? And then also, how is reopening going? What's the plan likely for Eswatini?
Fortunately, we haven't had to lay off anyone. We consider our work more than essential. So we've never even had to close during COVID-19. But also we're a very small organization. I can't speak for other NGOs. We have been able to, like, you know, with partnerships through with Crossroads, we've been able to have a really great volunteer base. So we have a lot of people that come in and help out, you know, pro bono for long periods of time that have been really amazing. I mean, we had a Crossroad volunteer with us until March when it was time to vacate, basically. So we haven't had to do any layoffs. That being said, you know, we do have challenges as NGOs because a lot of the funding that we get is directly, you know, is funding that directly goes into projects. It doesn't support the operational costs of the NGO. And, you know, we have to try and keep our doors open. We do need support towards our unrestricted funding. It means that we cannot give our employees a lot of security a lot of the time. You know, we have people employed on short-term basis, like from project to project, which is not ideal, you know. So I think that we need to really try and engage, you know, with, and I know that it's all about accountability and being able to appease donors, but I think that there needs to be more of a dialogue or engagement that positively, you know, affects the, you know, support on unrestricted funding, or rather, you know, funding towards operational expenses of an NGO, because we cannot do the work effectively if we don't have the capacity. That is in numbers, that is in expertise. We cannot always rely on volunteers, you know, and we cannot do it if we cannot keep our doors open. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And yes, fortunately, in Touchwood, we haven't had to do any layoffs, and I think it's because we have such a small team at Bomage.
Thank you, and it sounds like you're also very resilient. Julie, did you want to add, and also perhaps you can answer the question around the government's plans for reopening?
Sure. I want to echo what Sasha has said. We're in the same position. We've unfortunately not had to lay off any of our staff, but we've all had to work from home. So even having a team meeting has been impossible. And it's the same with us with regards to funding. We will get funded for project activities, but then we have to try and source other ways of earning income to pay salaries. So that it's a major concern for all of us, is the core costs to run your organization. So our government, our lockdown has started to be eased. I think that's why we've had a jump in numbers over the last couple of weeks. I don't see that the borders will be opening anytime soon. I think there's got to be a lot more testing in our country, and testing really hard on that. And I do a pretty good job here. I think they deserve like a little bit of a round of applause because they acted quickly, and now they're trying to bring us out of it, and they are trying to do the best they can.
Thank you. Great. Lots more questions. So I'm flipping back and forth. So there's a couple of questions about sustainable development. Sasha, I'll turn this one to you. The audience member is saying, great about sustainable development. Can you share about your vision around sustainable development with that intersectional lens? You know, what does that look like? And then what would the contribution of Gone Rural or even the government look like to that kind of a vision?
You know, we've always promoted community-led initiatives. We've always endorsed those because we feel that, you know, as members of a society, as a group, people have a voice, you know, and we don't want to be, you know, a spokesperson for people and tell them how to run their lives, or what change they need to implement in their communities. Sustainable development for us is, ownership. There's a really high level of ownership from the community members that seek any assistance, that, all ideas and all initiatives are coming from them independently and 100%, because we have found that we've learned, on the journey, that when we have implemented projects on behalf of communities, they fail. And I'm sure a lot of NGOs can resonate with that. We've done it many times, even recently. Sometimes, you get pulled in and you think it's the best way to do it, but the result will always be the same. If it hasn't come from the community or the people who actually need it, then it is not sustainable. So I'll give an example with our water projects. We have communities where we used to go and do surveys and see that they don't have water, and tell them, you need a borehole, we'll drill you a borehole, here's the borehole, and you give them, and they'll call you every month. Oh, this is not working, or that is not working, or what about this now? We want a better one. And you think, well, can't you do something about it? Until we've said, okay, you know what, we will wait for you to come to us and, and really push for your community. If this is something you really need, these are the things that we require. You have to meet these standards. And they work hard at that, which means, they open a bank account, they have to have a constitution in place, they have to have a water committee in place that has to have, female representation and all of those things. And we're seeing the communities come forward, the ones that really want it. And, we've switched from hand pumps to solar powered boreholes. Just because the maintenance isn't so high, when you deal with electric pumps, for instance, you have to pay for units and things like that. So that's how we meet them halfway, by introducing technologies that may not cost them as much, but that they still need to have a maintenance fund. They need to have an X amount of money in their bank account before we can even come in. So we're seeing that helps, like I mentioned much earlier, adopting an asset-based approach means you're working with people with inherent skills, people who feel confident doing something that they've been doing for a very long time, and then maybe they need guidance in terms of training on business or on entrepreneurship or access to markets, those type of things. And that's how we support. And we always tell them, we are here to support. We are not handing you, something on a silver platter and that we will come back and keep, supporting you. We want you to be independent, to be resourceful, to be resilient, to, be able to carry a business initiative. So I think that's what sustainability looks like for me. If a project is sustainable, it means that you can leave and it will get done. That being said, as an organization, because we work with Gone Rural artisans and we've worked with them since inception, we were established in 2006. So the advantage, which I feel, is that these are like family members to us. It's people that we know, we've grown with. And so it never makes sense for us to implement a project, leave and never come back. So we do come back and check, we won't do the work, but they know that they can always call on us, whether for advice or for, an upgrade or, for a referral or things like that. So that's one of the things we do. We just really try to be as supportive as possible, but they don't forget that they own it, it's theirs, they can do what they need to do with it.
A great demonstration of sustainability can look like. Julie, we had a question about, are Gone Rural products available in Canada?
They are. What we can do is people could always drop us an email and we can direct them to stores. 10,000 Villages Canada carries our products. And we can have a look for some other organizations as well.
Great, thank you.
And they're beautiful.
They are.
Stunning, beautifully made.
Thank you. There's a question around access to water. So is access to water a serious challenge? Are there opportunities in agriculture for domestic small business, in your view? And what kind of production could serve the domestic market, if any?
Is that for me or?
I can ask Julie.
Only 60% of the population has access to water. And we've had a major challenge in the southern part of our country where there was a prolonged drought. And they are still feeling the effects of the drought even today. And it was a 7-year drought. So we need small agricultural irrigation systems to help people grow vegetables and for sustainable livelihoods. One of the things that we've noticed since COVID is some of the products that we import from South Africa are no longer on the shelf. So we need to look at creating self-sustainability in our country, have a food processing plant where the community are selling beans to make tinned beans, things like that. We really have to look at that as a national strategy. But our land is so rich, the soil, you can grow anything in this country. Literally anything. There's a project at the moment where they're growing a traditional crop that comes from Southern Asia. And that crop is being grown in Eswatini and then being exported back to feed Rohingya refugees in the refugee camps. And it just goes to show that you can grow anything in this country. We just need a strategy and we need small irrigation systems.
An incredible example. We had a question I'm going to ask both of you, but I'll start with you, Sasha, that was pointing to what would you want to continue on with post-COVID? So what are you noticing is really working with your communities and with your organizations? Maybe you wouldn't have been doing those things except for COVID, but now you're seeing it's a real opportunity and you'd actually really see the value of continuing on with some of those practices. Sasha, for you?
I think the strongest, in our programs has been the water, sanitation, hygiene. It's definitely an area we want to continue in. We've seen how everything links to water, whether even in our sustainable livelihoods program where we are encouraging, exploration of income generating activities. We've seen such a high percentage of our artisans wanting to move into agriculture, and they cannot do that without water. On a health, basis, it's so important for them to have access to potable water so that, they reduce, waterborne diseases. And livestock, farming is a big one in Eswatini. And as Julie mentioned, with the drought, El Nino, like 4 years ago, they have not come out of that. Even just traditionally or culturally, as a people, we identify with a lot of men in the homesteads. They pride themselves with having a kraal full of cattle, and they cannot have that if cattle don't have access to water. And so it's so much tied into it, our identity, even the women, they'll tell us amazing stories about, actually, interestingly, in some communities, they don't welcome upgrading from a river to a borehole or something nearby, because they'll tell you, we enjoy walking to the river. That's where we meet, as women, we chat, we talk about our problems, we share stories. Also traditionally, you used to have courtships happening that way. That was the only way a man or a young guy can, find a young woman when she was walking to the river to get water. So there are so many rich, there's such rich culture in that's tied into it. So I think besides that, I think it's so important that people have equal access to water, so that even when pandemics like COVID strike, they don't have to worry about hand washing, and things like that. So that's been, I think, the most important in our programs that we feel we would definitely continue with. Capacitating the women right up there as well. making sure that they're supported and know their worth and are independent, and they can, you know, continue to provide for their families.
Thank you so much. What would you add?
I would like to add that we've got to make use of our natural resources, which is our soil. There's an interesting statistic that says if each household can grow an extra acre of cultivated land, just 1 acre, reduces their poverty level by 28%. That's huge. So we've got to look at what we have, what our assets are, and build on them. Sasha said something earlier that really resonated about top-down approaches. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about Crossroads, is that every single year you come to us and you say, what are your needs? What is it? What do you need? And then you help us to try and fulfill that need. I mean, you even ask us to do a 5-year project plan. You're a proper partner. You don't just come in with a solution. You're looking to work from the ground up. And I really appreciate that.
We love to hear that, and thank you for your partnership. We have time maybe for one more question. There's a question around women's ownership of land. So Sasha, I know you were just talking about agriculture, Julie talking about resources of soil. So Sasha, I'll come back to you. Can you paint a picture for our audience members around ownership? Do women own the land? And what are some of the challenges in that area?
That is a challenge. I mean, it's not too much of a challenge, but it is, in Eswatini, women cannot konda. Basically, it has to be through your husband. Only males have, you know, rights to Swazi nation land, that is. Title deed, on the other hand, yes, you can buy land as a woman in Eswatini. We've seen a lot of amazing women that have come up as farmers. There's an amazing competition actually with one of Crossroads beneficiaries, women farmer in Eswatini, and we've seen amazing women coming up through farming that have won great awards, that are doing a lot of amazing work and being, you know, sustainable in terms of the businesses they run that are attached to farming. And of course, you need land for that. So I don't see it as a major challenge. I don't want to, you know, agriculture is not an area that we've really extensively delved into as an organization. So I don't want to say too much because I don't want to speak out of turn. But from what I've seen, you know, a lot of women are able to farm and they're able to make income from it, and a sustainable income from it. One of the women we have, we have a WhatsApp group now for the artisans, and mind you, these are really old women. Some of them have been with Conroe for 30 years, they're in their 70s, you know, but they're amazing. They've come onto WhatsApp, some of them, and we always talk about what they're up to, and we're seeing a lot more women farming. You know, there's a woman from Etlangeni 1 who's the group leader. She started a piggery, and another woman from Lamkabi who's doing cabbages or something like that. They just have so many different things that they're trying out farming, and they've come and said that's to get her from her homestead. It takes her farming. She has seen it with the artisans, not only Conroe artisans, but other women in rural communities as well.
Sorry, Heather, can I just say something quick?
Please.
Women are actually allowed to conter now. They can conter and get land, but they have to have a child. So single women cannot conter. And what happens in our country is the land is held in trust. So you are the land holder. You don't own it. Nobody ever owns the land, but it's yours and it's in your family for generations, unless you do something terrible like murder. So a woman with a child can have access to land, and the way it's done, is they go to a community meeting and they pretty much ask the community. Then the community discuss, the chief discusses, and if they say yes, she will have that land. It will be in her family, but not single women. It's just changed recently.
Got it. Thank you. That is all the time we have. Thank you, first of all, to our audience. We still have more questions coming in, so lots of participation. And a special thanks, of course, Sasha, to you and to Julie, to Bomaki, Gonrural, and Swift for painting the picture of the challenges that still absolutely exist for, in particular, women, and all of the resilience and adaptation that your organizations and your communities are leading, from pumpkins to piggeries to WhatsApp at 70 years old. That's just totally inspiring. Thank you. And then for viewers, our Anglophone, our Francophone viewers, Crossroads International is having a second webinar that is starting in 5 minutes, so at the top of the hour, and this will be on food security crisis in West Africa. It's featuring Crossroads Senegalese partners, so you're welcome to go to that. And then for everyone else, thank you again, and please go to the Crossroads website, cintl.org, to learn more and to support our work and the work of our partners featured today. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. God bless.
Thank you. Lots of love.